Next up at UFC 266, we have Karl Roberson versus Nick Maximov. Nick Maximov 6-0 overall, so obviously 5-0 in his last 5. Karl Roberson, baby K Robinson, 9-4, only 2-3 in his last 5, coming off of 2 losses in a row. Nick Maximov, very solid BJJ, guys. Nick Maximov, a very solid BJJ guy who knows what he's good at and he sticks to it. His striking's pretty raw. His takedowns are okay. This is his first official UFC fight after a win last year at heavyweight. So this is a middleweight fight. His win last year on the Contender Series was at heavyweight. He's undefeated, but it's a very hollow record. If you dig into that record, he did not fight a single person with a winning record until the Contender Series fight. So he had 5 fights. Not one of them had a winning record, and 2 of them didn't even have a win at all. But he did win that Contender Series fight against a guy 2 weight classes above him, so he earned his spot. The problem is I can't look at his record and say, oh, he's 6-0. This could be the start of a 20-0 run because, 5 of those wins were just absolute nonsense. Karl Roberson, he's a well-rounded guy, solid striking, a few sneaky submissions in his back pocket. The problem for him seems to be that the UFC uses him to get people nice wins or back on track. They threw him in there with Glover 2019, Martin Vettori last year, Brendan Allen this year. But at the end of the day, he does have solid skills, legit UFC experience. I honestly think the UFC set this up to be a gift for Maximov to try to give him a nice win, keep that streak going. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We watched Karl beat Wellington Turman, trains with Glover. Dan trained with Wellington a month ago. And Wellington Turman took him down 4 times. He's a better grappler than Maximov is, and he couldn't put Karl Roberson away. He couldn't beat Karl Roberson. So I think Roberson, although if you look at his losses, there's a bunch of all 4 of his losses are submissions, and he's fighting a jiu-jitsu guy, but you cannot make your picks just looking at tabology and looking at records and making a decision from there. Because the reality is, every one of those submissions had a little asterisk next to it, a little caveat. Wellington Turman's not putting him away. I don't think Nick, with 6 fights, Maximov, is putting Karl Roberson away. He is my pick. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is another one of those Nick Diaz guys. And actually, he's nicknamed like the prodigy of the Diaz camp. So he's supposed to be like the next big thing. But I think there was a mistake putting him against Karl Roberson as well, because you mentioned he's a grappler. He's got takedowns, but some of his takedowns I saw were him just like double arms out, just kind of like running after people's legs and stuff. And the Nick Diaz camp isn't really a wrestling camp. You see, they're all jiu-jitsu guys. They're very good at that. But if you ever watch, especially Nate, he's unbelievable on the ground, but he's never going to get the fight to the ground if he doesn't want it, or if he wants to get to the ground. So, the grappling is going to be an interesting factor in this. If Karl Robinson can keep his back off the mat, he'll win this fight. But if he finds his back on the mat, I think he's in real trouble. So it really is. I agree with the odds. I think it's a coin toss whether that happens or not, because Karl Robinson has decent takedown defense. But I'm going to steal a line from what Dan always says. This Nick guy, he's 23 years old, and those guys tend to learn fast. So, if he's starting to pick up the wrestling to match with the jiu-jitsu, he could surprise us here and come out and look really, really sharp. So I'm staying away from this completely. I have no idea what's going to happen. I kind of think I would like to see Nick win, the young new prodigy coming up, but I wouldn't be surprised if Karl just kind of stuffs some takedowns and really pieces him up.
Yeah, and I completely agree with staying away from it. So we're a pick show. We got to do picks. I picked Karl Roberson. Mostly because Nick is so inexperienced. And if it was 6-0 and it was against decent competition, or at least competition, all right, there's something to work with there, right? 5 of those fights were losing records or no wins whatsoever. He only had 1 win. He did not look good. Granted, it was at heavyweight. So there's not much to go off of. So I agree. I'm not spending any of this money in DraftKings because there's too many question marks. If I do the monkey knife fight, honestly, I might go less because I think Karl Roberson either overwhelms Nick because he's just so inexperienced and he's new and he hasn't had any real adversity, or Nick submits Karl Roberson. And either way, I think it'll be less, right? Maybe more for Karl, less for Maximov if you think Karl's going to beat him for 3 rounds. But, I'm not going to bet it either. And every week I have been up on bets. It's been like 2 months I haven't lost. And it's because I pick my shots. I don't force anything. There's nothing to do here. There's too many unknowns. There's not enough experience to really base any solid infrastructure pick on it. So I'm going to stay away from this. I might do some monkey knife fight. I think I like the less there. Like I said, either a pretty quick submission from Nick, if he can get it to the ground, or Karl is just going to overwhelm, and you'll see what that inexperience does.
No, I was going to say, I love that 84.5 line for Nick, because I think it's definitely less on that one. He's not a striker, and even when he gets to the ground, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. That Karl run, the Karl one, I will say, with Nick not being a wrestler, but he's going to try for takedowns, there could be those positions where he's just kind of riding his hip against the cage, and Karl's just pop on the side of his head, and those add up quick. So that's the only thing that would scare me with the less.
56 is a low number. 56 is a low number. So let's put it this way. If you think it goes to a decision, I would do more Roberson, less on Maximov. And if you think there's a stoppage, then just less on both, is how I would break that down. But you don't have to play everything. Restraint is key.
Restraint.